Hey everybody, this is Sapora from artisticministry.net, and I hope that this video finds everyone in a place of peace and safety and comfort. And I just felt moved to do this video because I felt inspired by something that I heard on, I was listening to a video by a woman, Renata. Her channel is actually called God is Our Protector. And she was talking about, I guess someone had sent her a letter. And they had, basically they had been sharing just, their frustration and their pain around being alone in the world, not having friends, not having family. And I just, this is one of the ways that, that our perpetrators, this is one of the ways that they can really, do us a lot of damage, because I think that on a certain level, we are social creatures. We like talking and just communing and being with people. And when we find ourselves being shunned and isolated and blacklisted, especially in the way that it's done for us who are being targeted, who are being gang stalked, where it's done in a very kind of like knife in the back, where they're coming up behind your friends when you're not around and they're saying things, or they're doing the gaslighting and they are setting you up in certain circumstances where you look really like crazy or really weird, or people just feel uncomfortable being around you all of a sudden, and you don't even know how to really explain it, or you do have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses and flaws and faults, and so these are people who can, because they've stalked us and because they've learned about some of those weaknesses and flaws, and because they have all of the experiences that they've developed from other people that they've tormented and destroyed, they know how to use our flaws and foibles to work against us. And I can remember when I was dealing with a lot of childhood recovery, dealing with a lot of just like issues around just like my own, just like body images, and just not feeling, just being in a really, really vulnerable place, and how that was used against me, and legitimately so. I mean, because that's the thing that's really like crafty and insidious about this, or that can be insidious and crafty about it, is that it's not like they're always telling lies. I mean, they're finding some of these things that they're using against us are truths. They do find flaws with us. They do take our faults, but they take the fault, they mix in like a huge amount of exaggeration and drama and lies, okay, and then put it out there, to people who, the majority of whom are reactionary and don't really know how to step back and question something, and maybe wonder why they're being told this or why they're being told that. And because no one wants any problems, no one wants to rock the boat, they don't want to anyone getting upset with them, so they just go along with it, and never really question what's really going on. And so because we get put in those types of just isolated positions like that, it makes it even harder to find, to be comfortable with being alone. And so this woman had written this letter and was sharing her feelings around this. And so I just, I was listening to that, and it just, I don't know, just hit some of my buttons, because that was something that I had, that I've dealt with, a long time ago. And, okay, if I did the video a while back. Well, it seems like a while back. It's probably only been about 2 weeks, but, or a week and a half. But I was talking about just my experiences. And the experiences that I was sharing with you, these were experiences of being targeted when I first became aware that it was happening. Okay? And so I was sharing you those events where I knew that I was being targeted, that I had, Left my boyfriend. I was living out of the country. He had made these threats. He had always been, putting that out there, about, the witchcraft and the Satanism, and don't trust these people and don't trust that people because they're like this and they're going to do you that way, and don't go to that store and blah, blah, blah. And so we started to have our own problems, and that was just one of the things that I was just really just made me uncomfortable. And he had made these threats. So when I left and came back to the U.S., I pretty much expected that was going to happen, and it was happening. And I knew it was connected to him because of just the different dreams that I had in the nightmares and such. But what I wasn't aware of was how people here in the United States who did not know him, who did not know me, how it was that they were able to just do that, and just immediately hop on board that bandwagon, and just how organized it was and how unrelentless it was. That was so those were the experiences that I was sharing with you. But, in looking back over my life, there's a part of me that can say, well, this is something that I have been dealing with, just off and on. I want to say throughout, the majority of my life, and I don't know that I would definitely say, well, that all of those incidents, the majority of my life, that was being targeted or being gang stalked. I don't know that I would say that, but I think that I think that probably maybe a more accurate assessment would be that some of the tactics that the perpetrators of this targeting, some of the tactics that they use, they incorporate them from just the negative part of being in a society where you shun people, where you blacklist people. And I think, the reasons vary. They're not all the same. And which brings me to another point, and that is that I was listening to another video by this same woman, and she was listing all the different reasons why someone could be, what she called as being in a program where you could be put on a list, to be put in this program, to be targeted. And she listed, some people who's maybe they come from a family that's where they were the family, military family, or maybe they were in the military. Because of religion, she was mentioning certain religions. And it's interesting, one of the religions she mentioned was one of them that I had been involved with for a while. It was the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she mentioned those people who were maybe because they were involved with Masons, they were involved with Eastern Stars. She mentioned being on, maybe getting put on a list because maybe you had some type of an encounter with an attorney. Some of these attorneys, depending on their connections and how vindictive they are, that could be a reason you could be on a list. You could be on a list because just with siblings, maybe you're arguing with someone over, going through some type of a legal contest around, or legal battle around, land or an inheritance. And one of the ways that they can, get you to get out of that, to get your name off, out of, how can I say this, so that you're no longer a contender for that, is to start targeting you and, basically drive you crazy, get you in a mental institution, sign away your rights to that inheritance or something. And she gave the example of a fellow who had, I guess this couple had bought land or bought property, and I think this one was one of them that I think was televised, where the family had asked them to not buy the land, but they went ahead and bought it anyway, and they retaliated by starting to target them, going by their house at all weird hours, honking their horns, and hang up phone calls and all kinds of weird stuff. But because he had money, because he had his own connections, he was able to get lawsuits against them. He was able to get, draw attention to it through the media and such. But so I was just wondering about that. And I just, looked at my own family, and I think, I can't remember if she mentioned this or not, but I think some of it might be intergenerational. Because I just look at my own family and the way, my immediate family, meaning, my mother, and how she was treated, by her siblings. And just this idea that we were kind of like the black sheep of the family. We weren't, we were the family, we were the, my mom was the sister who, the youngest sister who, she didn't have a car. So we were always calling them, asking them for rides. She would always be, maybe have problems with her money. She was a, which we call a functioning alcoholic, but there were times when, money came up short for the rent. She was, that one. And so we were, her children, so a lot of, my cousins and stuff, looked at us, they kind of, hey, man, we were not, the cool ones. Let me just put it that way. And so, but as a result of that, there were times in my life, as a young child, where I didn't have friends, and there were people where I didn't really want to hang out with anybody. Where me, and I can remember one of my brothers, my middle brother, we really just, hey, we preferred, hanging out by ourselves. And I can remember, doing that. And so for me, now, as an adult, having people, blacklist me, having people, shun me, and basically, turn their back on me, it wasn't as painful and devastating as it could have been. And I think on just the different scriptures and such that I've read, those apocalyptic scriptures prophesying, what is to come, and how I can't remember which book it is. I want to say perhaps Ezekiel, where the Most High says that He will make man as rare as fine gold, as rare as the gold of Ophir. Meaning, this land is going to be so devastated. The killing and the mass destruction is going to be so intense that there's going to hardly be any people left. And so you might, a survivor in a situation like that might run across another human being every 5 days. Every 500 miles. And that, if we think it's hard now to not be around people, what do you think it's going to be like then? And who is the type of individual who would be better equipped to deal with that? The targeted individual, the TI, and that's just, someone could, argue with me about that, and that's fine, but that's just something that I was just thinking about, as I was listening to her read this letter that this woman that she had left her, about being alone. And I'm not saying this because it's not easy, it really isn't, especially because it can be frustrating when you don't have any way to address what's happening. Because an example that I thought of was, I've mentioned, having my computer hacked and such. I mean, there's been times when I've been, wanting to, I've been on different YouTube channels, and maybe there's been a, a live stream, the chat that's going on, and having, somehow someone's able to get into my account or do something and start messing with it, and all of a sudden I get booted out of the chat. And I haven't done anything. I've maybe made a comment or two, but all of a sudden I'm being threatened to be booted out, and then I'm booted out, and I hadn't done anything. And what's up with that, And so it is frustrating. And if you're someone who really wants friends, well, then yeah, that's going to be really hard. It's not going to. You're not going to be able to deal with that or handle that as well as, as someone else. And yet, one of the other things that I've noticed is that because of what I've been through, I have a stronger sense of self, because I don't have anyone to do things for me. I don't have anyone to speak for me. I don't have anyone who's going to really, quote unquote, have my back. Somebody says, I'm with you 10 toes down. Oh, well, that's nice. I have plenty of people who say things like that, but, my experience is such that I wouldn't trust them. I mean, my trust in humanity, I trust people as far as I trust as far as I can roll you up and bowl you. And how far is that? Truly, think about that. How far is it? How could I? No, that's how much trust I have in people. But I do have a sense of health, a sense of self. And one of the things that I learned, in doing my just childhood recovery, is, how did my therapist say it one time? You cannot give an honest and sincere yes until you can give an honest and sincere no. And so that, speaks to that point of many of us where we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want anyone to be mad at us. So we say yes when we really, truly want to say no. And then because we all of a sudden find ourselves in a situation that we can't get out of, then we get upset and we get angry and we find ourselves being resentful at someone. And it all would have been resolved really easily if we had simply been able to say no. And I'm thinking of, just sometimes benign examples, like if someone asks you if you have a car, and they ask you if they can, have a ride, to the next town over. And if you had been able to say, no, sweetie, I really can't. I'm really not feeling like it, or whatever. I don't have any money for the gas, or I just don't want to do it. To be able to just say no, that would have solved the problem. But because we don't want to be inhospitable, because, some of us come from cultures where, and I mean cultures meaning, like just like our family culture, where you can't say no, where if you say no, all of a sudden, there's a repercussion, a negative repercussion. And so we say yes, so we end up giving someone a ride to the town over. We're steaming and stewing the whole time, and, gritting our teeth, and they're sensing that and going, God, what's wrong with this person, And, maybe we've lost a friend, or there's tension in that friendship. And it wouldn't have happened if we had just been able to say no, not in a hateful way, not in an abusive way, but just simply being able to say no. And, but see, that's something that I learned how to do, was to say no, to let my no mean no and my yes mean yes. And that comes as a result of just being on my own, and not having anyone to really depend on, and people's feelings and what they think and all of that. It all kind of changes, and so I guess maybe what I'm trying to say is that maybe from this experience we can, search through all of the muck and find some of the diamonds, and maybe one of the diamonds is finding that sense of self, getting a strong sense of self. Maybe another diamond is learning how to be independent, because, now for me, hey, I would rather be alone, okay, than be friends with someone and hang out with someone who I know doesn't have my best interest at heart, and that there's the possibility that they're setting me up, that what I think is going to be just a casual, let's hook up and go to, Starbucks and hang out and talk and, get some coffee or whatever. For all I know, they've got 3 or 4 people that they've already set up, positioned, so that when I get there, they can do some of their stage stuff and have something happen. And I'm sitting up here being a victim of something and don't even know why, okay? And, I know I can say something like that to most of my subscribers, and you're not going to go, well, geez, you sound like that just sounds really paranoid. I know that you're not going to think that because some of you have had that happen to you, and I know I have. So I'm at a place now. I'll go to the movie by myself. I'll go hang out at Starbucks by myself rather than hang out with you, knowing that you could possibly set me up for something to have happen to me. I don't think so. I'd rather be alone. And that's just where I'm at with that. And I just look at my one of my heroes, my ultimate hero, is this fellow right here. Just zoom in on it right there, so we can end right where we began. This right here is a picture of a man who is more than likely a more accurate description or depiction of our Messiah than the one that we are most commonly, that we are more used to, more familiar with. This fellow right here. And I just I recently did a fast, and part of the fast I read a book a day. So I read the book of Mark, Luke, and John, and I noticed how many instances how he would retire to the Mount of Olives, or he would retire to a desert place, or he would just, be away from people. And it was many times it was because people were seeking to hurt him. They were seeking his life to kill him. And so he stayed away from people. And because of his connection to the Holy Spirit and to the Most High, he would know when to come into Jerusalem, when to come into Capernaum, when to come into Bethany. And I'm thinking of the example as with Lazarus. He knew that Lazarus had died, but he was living away. He had moved away, and so he decided to come in then, and he did. But he is my hero and he is my example. I love him, and I believe that he was definitely a targeted individual. And he said straight up, if the world hated me, it will hate you. But I just wanted to share that, and to try to take a weakness and turn it into a strength, that maybe we should count it on joy that we are being shunned and blacklisted, because the majority of the people that we are being kept away from, many of them will more than likely not gain the first resurrection. Many of them will not receive eternal life. And we don't want to be in that number. We want to be in the other number. Yes? Yes. We want eternal life. Okay. Shalom.